Okay, well, we started the recording, so let's get underway. Welcome, good morning. This is Spark looking back, looking forward. My name is Dan Bostrom. I'm the member engagement manager from Rails. I've been asked to be today's host, which I'm excited to do. This event is being presented by the Illinois Association of College and Research Libraries Forum, commonly known as IACRL. I'm very excited. Before we get started, I want to recognize some people here that have put a lot of work into it. First of all, I want to recognize Emily Gilbert, who has done a ton of work on this particular event. Thank you, Emily. Emily's been working with the conferences in Continuing Education Committee of IACRL. I won't name everybody individually, but thank you to all of them who have put a lot of work into this event. We are also being supported today by Tamara Jenkins from ILA. Tamara, thank you so much for helping keep this event rolling smoothly. And also I want to thank everybody who's put in a lot of time and effort into these Spark events. So we're a little bit more than a year removed from the last year's Spark event, which was the first time I think we ever did something like that. It was a ton of fun. If you didn't attend, you're going to see a little bit of what we had hoped to sort of capture. ICRL has also done a ton of other things in the meantime. If you haven't attended, they've presented webinars, they've done town hall events. I think ICRL is really working at a top level right now. So this is all sort of a call to action. If you are not involved in the forum, I highly suggest looking into it and connecting with either Emily or Dan Matthews or Sue Vincent or someone like that who can suggest ways to get involved with the forum. It's a great way to get to know colleagues around Illinois and also practice leadership skills. Okay, so let's get to today's event. So this is a very brief agenda. The times that I listed here aren't exact, but they're close enough. So between now and 10:15, we will do 3 presentations. We'll have a short break at 10:15, and then around 10:20, we'll come back and we'll do breakout sessions. So this event is going to be very interactive. So between the breakout sessions and then the unconference that's going to start at 10:35 or around 10:35, you're going to do about 75 to 80 minutes of direct communication with other attendees. So please be prepared for that. We hope that you'll enjoy that aspect of it. Okay, so here's how the breakout rooms are going to work. So while you're listening to the presentations, they're going to come up in a second here. Please think about which topic you would want to talk about. We have the 3 titles that I've listed here, and if you minimize my video's screen, you can see the full title. You also don't have to see my face, which is a benefit. Once all of these are over, we're going to give you a little bit of time to choose the topic, and the way that you're going to choose your topic is by putting one of these 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3, into your name in the attendees list. If you hover over your name, you're going to have the option to rename yourself in the attendees list, and then just put the number 1, 2, or 3. When the time comes, my colleague Tamara Jenkins will place you into the breakout room. Thank you again, Tamara. Unconference. Okay, so the unconference section is going to be the whole second half of this event. And to help out with this, we want your topics. Unconference is just a way that you could choose what you want to talk about. So if you do have a topic, you could put it, maybe it's something like marketing or promotion, maybe it's OERs, maybe it's partnerships with other types of libraries, whatever it is, please send it to Dan Matthews. Dan, can you just put a message into the chat saying hi, so that people know who you are and so people know how to reach you. Dan's a very friendly individual, so you can message him. And if you want to send him a direct message, you can. If you want to put it so everybody sees it, that's fine too. And he'll be collecting those, and then we'll be setting those up so you should be able to choose which one you go into. We're also going to be using something called Jamboard. If you've never used this is a collaboration software. It's sort of a digital whiteboard, and Dan has links to all those events, which he'll put, or all those documents, which he'll put into the chat, and you can access there. Okay, so we are at the time of our first presentation, and I am going to introduce our first 2 speakers. So Juliet Gray and Lise Penkel are presenting Creating a Playbook for Sustained Services in Unprecedented Times. So the description is under fall semester directives from our university administration and new to working together as of August 2020, we had to meet the challenge of reopening the library for the fall semester of campus statewide and national uncertainty. Our library was able to provide all existing services as well as offer new services in a safe environment. Although all services, spaces, and collections were made available during the 2020-2021 year, most library employees were still working remotely. This was all possible through a flexible and trusting partnership that developed quite quickly between the library faculty, staff, and users. The lessons learned from our collaboration during the 2020-2021 academic year will carry over to subsequent semesters, even with the anticipated abatement of COVID-19 health concerns. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, and Juliet and Lise, you are welcome to share. Oh, Juliet,
can everybody hear me? Can
Yep.
everyone hear me? Okay, thank you. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Juliet Gray, the Associate Dean for Research, Teaching, and Engagement here at SIUE.
And I'm Liz Pankel. I'm the Dean of Library and Information Services at SIUE. And then do I want to make it big?
Yeah, hey, Julia, if you just hit the present thing down in the right-hand corner. Yep, there you go. Oh, yep, exactly.
Okay.
There you go. Got it.
Okay, so when we began 2020, none of us, I think, in the whole entire world could have predicted what would come to pass over the year. And here in our library, we were already we were focused on the migration from Voyager to Alma Primo. We had a new library Starbucks that we were opening, and we were figuring out how to deliver services at a unified service desk. But then we were blindsided, of course, like the rest of our librarian colleagues, by the COVID-19 pandemic, which forced us not only to address our own experience and point of view that had been shifted by this experience, but also think about library administration and library service differently. The library here at SIUE closed from March 2020 to July 2020, which was the case in the rest of the state as well for academic libraries. And during that time, we had to quickly pivot to the online delivery of most of our services. This presented a lot of challenges for us because of, we had internal communication challenges that we had to address, and some real-time skill development that needed to be done with staff and faculty in the moment. We quickly pivoted to delivering our services using SpringShare, the SpringShare suite of apps, LibCal, LibStaffer, in order to provide instruction, research, outreach services to faculty and students. And we also developed a curbside pickup service for students and faculty that needed to get physical materials.
Should I do this one? I actually came here in August of 2020, and my entire interview process was remote. So I interviewed in April of 2020. So I was really coming here completely blind. And what I found when I came here was a completely flat organization. We did have a couple people in interim roles, but otherwise, everything was kind of coming directly to the dean. So one of my first priorities was to delegate responsibility, adding in some area coordinators. We were able to make Juliet's position permanent by adding giving her the job, or she applied for the job of Associate Dean for Research, Teaching, and Engagement. Is anybody getting like a background?
So it's because It's because the two of you are in the same room next to each other.
If we put
So
on our
one of you is going to
headphones-
need to mute while the other talks.
Okay. Okay. So if you just mute, I think if you mute.
Sorry about that.
That's great. That's great.
Okay. Yeah, and so, that was kind of, some of my first priorities when I got here. Another thing that I walked immediately into was a lot of uncertainty on campus. What would happen in the fall when the students who were coming onto campus came onto campus? We did have some on-ground classes, and those were mainly things like labs or things like that that had to be done in person. But the library was expected to remain open. And so we were, open pretty much regular hours. We didn't have our late night evening hours. So there was a lot of uncertainty about if students would follow guidance about social distancing and masks, which we were lucky in that, we really did not have a problem with that. Also, developing relationships with university administration and other deans was difficult in a remote environment. I've been doing all of my dean council meetings remotely. We actually just met in person for the first time a few weeks ago. So in terms of developing those relationships, which I think is really crucial for the library to kind of have that seat in academic affairs and partnering with people and making the library a bigger part of what's going on in the university. So those were just kind of some of the challenges I came in immediately into that were due to COVID and kind of strategies that I used. I muted myself.
Okay. So
I wonder why it's doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
this is tough, but Liz, maybe if you can turn off your sound, I think it's catching the sound from your computer.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot better. Okay, we figured it out. Our apologies. Okay, so one of the things that we did when we reopened in August that I'm always excited to talk about is we built this building essential team of staff, students, and a few faculty members who were in the building from August onward to serve at the information desk. For reduced hours of operation, but pretty regular hours. We were open, I believe, from about 8 a.m. until 5 in the afternoon. So that building essential team had to be kind of lean and mean and be able to provide service to students, faculty, and staff that might be in the building. And we did have a steady stream of people that were coming into the building from the moment we opened back up. But sort of handling, these issues of safety procedures, cleaning. And so one of the first things that we did was we established both a physical team and a virtual team that was staffing our chat reference remotely. We started to use Microsoft Teams and Zoom for internal communication to make sure that everybody knew how to contact everybody else, and so that we could serve our patrons whose needs were changing pretty rapidly day to day, particularly faculty members needing resources to teach in a flipped environment that they were not prepared for. We also developed safety procedures and cleaning procedures that were in line with the messaging that was being distributed in other units on campus, which I think was a really important way to communicate to students about what would be considered safe practices, what was social distancing really looked like in these buildings. We used all the same flyers and other forms of communication that were being used across campus. And I think the consolidation of that messaging really helped keep everybody on the same page about how they were supposed to be using these spaces, these public spaces in a safer way during this uncertain time. We experienced an increase in laptop checkouts and requests for streaming services. And that was in particular from faculty, the streaming services requests. So we had to sort of change our collection development model to accommodate those needs for professors trying to put most of their content online. And then we did maintain curbside pickup for those who were still not that comfortable coming into the building. And we did that for part of the fall semester until that seemed to sort of become less of a popular option.
And then the next slide. And can you make it big? Oh, okay. In addition to the things that I talked about with, building relationships across campus with other university administrators and other deans, I also wanted to focus on trying to maintain a team environment when we were working remotely. So for most of the year, most people were working remotely. As Juliet talked about, we had a building essential team, and then we kind of had the dean's office here, but most librarians and most staff were working remotely. So a few strategies for that were doing some Zoom social hours. And that was an idea that my development director had, who was also new. So he kind of had some ideas for engaging with people. We did a book club last spring, and we're going to do another one this summer because that one was really successful. People really liked connecting with each other that way. The book club in the spring was on Zoom. This one this summer, we're thinking we can have it in person, that we'll have enough space to do that. Also, we started looking every month at a scholarly journal and analyzing it, and have somebody lead that conversation and look at how that could, how could we take what was being talked about in that article and apply that here at SIUE. I also started a professional success team, and this has really developed into almost a research group, I would say. People share what they're working on. They share, how they're carving out time to do their research, and how it's really applying to their practice as librarians. And then another aspect of, and this was actually started pre-pandemic, was a very significant weeding project. And Juliet's actually been in charge of that. And when I came, it kind of slowed down, I think, due to the pandemic. There's been some communication lapses with departments, but we were able to get that up and going in the summer. We're using a real team approach to get all of these books out of the library. It's kind of a daunting task, but we've split the library up into teams to be able to do that.
So some of the biggest lessons that we've learned really have to do with how important it has been to partner with other units on campus. I mentioned this in my previous slide. The process of trying to align our services and our health guidelines and our messaging with our campus partners really gave the library the opportunity to connect better with leaders in those other areas, such as the Student Services Center, the Fitness Center, talking with University Marketing and Communication about messaging. And this is one way that the situation that the pandemic created has really changed how we're communicating with other units on campus, and seeing the library as a shared space in a different way, looking at it more from a public health point of view. The library is a shared space. Our space was sorely needed. Students were needing a third space because we had students that were living on campus. So they were needing a third space that was safe, that they they could study or just relax in, and the library became that space. And communicating with the other units on campus who were not be able to provide the space safely, we realized the library was a real important factor in maintaining semi-normal operations at the university over the last year. And so now we're really thinking about ways to leverage that space further and keep the momentum going of having the library thought of as a place where not only students can study and socialize, but also as a center, as a place where we can gather, have programming, increased programming, and conversations going forward. So some lessons learned, like I've just been saying, increased communication with campus units is one of the biggest ones. And I'm looking forward to opportunities to continue building those partnerships.
Also, team building, again, it was really kind of crucial to keep that going with everyone working remotely, but it's something we want to keep up with, the scholarly journal club, the book clubs, the professional success team, doing things like social hours. Like with this weeding project, we're going to have a party at the end, and some of the other departments are thinking about having like little competitions about who can weed the most, but I think that that's really important to building a successful library.
We also are moving forward quickly with developing more online modules. We were able to hire during this year an online learning librarian who is really helping us pivot to deliver our library instruction in both asynchronous and synchronous formats. And so that's something that that having to work in this environment has really sort of set us up to be successful going forward with the online delivery of services. And then also from an administrative point of view, this year has really taught us about how to manage libraries when your staff and really the whole world sort of caught in a crisis mentality. There were a lot of unknowns, of course, and about what was healthy, what was not healthy, what was safe. And being asked to reopen in August to meet the needs of our users physically here on campus made us have to not only address those questions, but handle them in a way that mitigated some of that crisis mentality. And so going forward, I think that having experienced leading during this time has shown us how to approach library operations with the concerns and health of our staff in mind, while also sort of maintaining a sense of balance to offset an increasing unease in the culture around us.
As well, I talked about relationship building. That was definitely more of a challenge with everyone being remote, with people coming back. I'm finding that, I'm getting to know people better. One of the things I keep hearing from people is people want to get to know me. I'm still very new, and because of last year was remote, it feels like I haven't even been here a year. It feels like a shortened period of time. So being able to build those relationships within the library, and also outside on campus and in the community as well. We actually have a pretty strong partnership with Edwardsville Public Library.
Okay, thank you, Liz and Juliet. Juliet, did you have anything more to say?
We had a final slide that just said thank you, and it's okay.
Okay. Well, thank you both, and remember, if you want to choose Liz and Juliet's topic as one of your breakouts, you can put a number 1 next to your name in the attendees list. Okay, so our next presenter is Kelly Plass, and Kelly's topic is how offering new online methods of instruction during the pandemic has changed how we teach information literacy going forward. And Kelly, just for the interest of time, I put your description into the chat, and so everybody can read that right there. And you are welcome to share your screen and get started.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I have, for one of the things, I'm at Lewis University, and like everybody else, we suddenly went completely online. And so we had everything had suddenly moved to an online format, and pre-pandemic, every instruction that we'd ever done was face-to-face. So that was a big problem that we had, although it was March. So luckily, most of our instruction had already been completed. So we still had a few that were scheduled for later in the semester. And so the big question that we had, even though we were able to really transition, we were the first unit who did not have a problem transitioning to online. We were immediately, because luckily we'd already had chat, and so students were already used to doing that online. So we always did chat reference. So we wanted to make sure that we were going to reach the rest of the classes that we had, and unfortunately most of them decided to not have their library instruction for the rest of the semester, but we did have a few. And so that was the big question, was how are we going to do that? So I got together with our director and I was talking with him, and we decided that, one, since we already had chat, we could figure out how to do Zoom, because we had SpringShare, and at first Zoom was like free for everyone to have unlimited time. And then we ended up getting an enterprise version of that. And then I'll talk about what we did with that in a minute. And so we wanted to think about what the different types we could do. And then we reached out to all of the rest of the classes that we had left. And we said, we can still do instruction for you. So don't think that just because we're online, we can't do instruction anymore. And so we got a couple back. And one of the benefits was we actually have a branch in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we're in Illinois, obviously. And we actually were able to do instruction for them, and we've never done that before. So that was actually really a really cool benefit and unexpected, that they were like, hey, we would like to take advantage of this. And so we were like, hey, awesome. So they were really our first test people, because we thought about it, how we could do it. So what we did was we had our Zoom session, and the first one was a little bit odd because it was completely synchronous and we weren't quite sure how to make it work, but we got all the kinks worked out like everybody else, where we were sharing screens and everything. And then we became pros really quickly. So another thing that we wanted to do was, a lot of the professors told us that they didn't have time in what we had left, because we had an extended spring break and we didn't have a lot of time left in the semester. So we decided to make completely asynchronous videos. And so we offered that as one of our options, where the professor can tell us what they want us to cover, and then we would make a completely asynchronous video so the students could look at that on their own time outside of class. And then we also wanted to do what we've never done before, was a flipped classroom. So it was a hybrid of the asynchronous, where we do a tutorial and we have videos and we walk them through what to do. And that one's the most interactive. And then we have a synchronous follow-up where we go into the class and then we answer any questions and help troubleshoot. So that one is the most involved, where we have to talk mostly with the professor a lot more on what specific things we want to cover. And then we have our synchronous one, which is through streaming conference. And for that one, it's actually, that one's different, where they give us the link to their classroom. So it can be on any platform that they have. And my team and I are actually really good at pretty much every single platform that we've come across. We can do Collaborate, we can do WebEx, we very familiar with Zoom, we've done it on Teams. So whatever platform they have, we're actually really adaptable on using that. And if they don't have one, we also give them our Zoom link, and so that they can join us. So with the video only one, the professor decides the topics or topic, and then we create the instruction video and we cover the topics, and then the students watch them outside of the class, and they do that on their own as they needed. And we don't usually have any feedback, so we don't know whether they watched them, we don't know how it worked, and we don't know if the student, you know, even used them at all. So with the flipped one, that's where we create the tutorial, and that one is very specific to the assignment that they have. So I had one where I did it for college writing, and the professor wanted us to cover very specific topics. So I had the topics, I had the students do different things, and I used LiveWizard, and we did the tutorials in SpringShare for that one. And then with the virtual streaming one, that one is just like we would do a normal one, where we come in, they give us the topics, and then we do everything, as we say, we do everything that we would normally do when we're in person, except it's just virtual. So that one's during the regular class time. And that one is interactive with the professor, usually will say things, and we have chat up where we're talking. And so the students can ask questions through chat. And that it also brings us to how they request a session. So one of the things that we needed to do was, this was a completely new program. And we had been for years trying to get professors to have one way of asking for instruction sessions. So we were like, hey, this is a perfect opportunity to, since we're changing everything anyway, we might as well change everything. And so we created a form, and I'll show you that, where the professors can ask for their instruction session. And then what they do is it's dynamic. So they ask me, we also have it for orientations too. So they ask me what they want for instruction, and then we get the graduate level, we get the course name, we get what topics they would like covered. And then we have all of the different options here. Now, I didn't say it was the student-driven virtual tutorial, because that's actually the same thing that we would do with the flipped hybrid, except for this one, we don't come in at the end. And so we found that the virtual live synchronous classes were actually the most popular. I don't think it's because it's the first option, but we have the flipped, we have our asynchronous pre-recorded videos, and then we have those, and then we have very last. So that was still an option, but I've tried to make it very clear that nothing else would work. And I did actually have that in the last semester, where I was able to talk them into, why don't we just do a synchronous session? Because the vaccine wasn't out yet or anything. And so then when they select their option, then they get the next options that we need to find out more information. So like for the flipped hybrid, when do you want the tutorial? When do you want us to join the class? And so it goes like that for all of those. And so then they can give us a file if they want us to do something very specific. So here's the question, what worked? It's like I said a couple of times, the synchronous was the very best. That's what everybody loved the most. But for the flip sessions, what didn't work was if the professor did not have any consequences or anything that they assigned for the students to do the flip portion. So I had 2 classes where the professor did not have anything, no points, nothing assigned, and none of the students, when I had gone in, had done the session. So none of them had a clue. They had no questions because they hadn't done anything. But for the college writing one, we had it so that she had points, and she asked me to give, because we have in the LibWizard, you know who did what in the tutorial. She asked for a list of the students, and we also included a certificate so that they could prove that they had finished the whole tutorial. And that one worked the best. So that's why we changed the form to reflect that this is how this works the best. So we put those on there. The only problem with the form is that I can't highlight stuff, so I can say, hey, this is the best way to do this one. So that was the one that worked the very best. And then, so that's how we did the, I just went into the form, sorry. And then the other thing that we did was we didn't want to leave the students, because we did research consultations face-to-face. We didn't want to leave those students hanging, and we already had chat, like I said. So what we did was we created 2 different types of research consultations. So once we had the enterprise version of Zoom, we could integrate that into LibWizard, and we can have that with our session, so students could request to have it virtually through Zoom, or they could have a phone call. And so in both cases, we contact the student in the Zoom sessions. The link is already in there, and the student joins us at a specific time. Otherwise, we make a phone call with them. And that one, the Zooms are really popular. The phone call one is interesting, is that one is most popular with like our older graduate students, and like a lot of the younger students are into the Zoom session, and that could just be a technology thing. But I get a lot from the Zoom sessions where students are asking if we're actually in the library or not, and half the time we are, and half the time we're not, so that they notice no difference between that. Now, what we're going to keep, we're actually going to keep everything, because we don't think that there's any reason for us to eliminate one of the options. Now that we have them, we might as well keep them. We're just going to add in the in-person ones. I'm probably going to keep it still at the bottom. I might put it in second, but we're not going to do only when nothing else will work. And we'll see if that makes a difference. Because we actually discovered we like the synchronous virtual classes as much as the professors did, because we can do back-to-back classes a lot better. We don't have to run across campus to go from one class to another. Where we only have they have like a 3-hour class and they only want us in for like a half hour, it's easier to come in and out of the class without disturbing the class and disrupting the class flow. And classes are more personal for the student, because when a student asks a question, we have their name up and we can say, hey, Joe, this will answer your question. And then the student goes like, oh, I noticed that there's a lot more interaction with that. So that's everything I have. Try to keep you on time.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And remember, if you want to choose Kelly's topic as a breakout room, just put the number 2 next to your name in the attendees list. Okay, so we're moving on to our final presentation, and we're a little bit behind schedule, mostly my fault because I got us started late. And I want to introduce our final speaker, and then immediately after that, we're going to go into a 5-minute break, and I'll explain a little bit about what is going to happen there after Kent's presentation. So our next presenter is Kent McComb, and his title is Emphasizing for the Future. Instructional techniques designed to pay forward compassionate teaching frameworks. Kent, I put the description of your session into the chat just for time's sake, and you are welcome to start sharing.
Can everyone hear me?
Sounds great.
Great. All right, so can you see the PowerPoint that's really not that important? Great. So I'm going to change up a little bit what I was going to talk about just because of time, and also because the first group in particular talked about some of the things that are similar to my own experience. So what am I talking about? Empathizing for the future. And before I get started, while I'm thinking about it, here's my contact information. If you want to follow up with me, I'm at Milner Library, Illinois State University. You're welcome to email me at any time. I'm very interested in collaboration. Like someone else mentioned, I'm new. I came in last year. I actually was fortunate enough where it was on the cusp of COVID, so I had an in-person interview. I came in with a cohort where actually some of the cohort had online, so that's how close it was to COVID. And I also came in, and this is just personal, with a lot of trauma. And so, I don't know this for a fact, but I think certain people are, they use the term empath, that people can empathize with someone else very emotionally and connect with that person more easily than, someone who's very withdrawn or, emotionally guarded. And so when I was preparing for instruction in the spring, I was trying to inform what I was doing by what happened in the fall. I'm just going to back this up. And what did happen in the fall? So, it was all new. We were distanced as opposed to open. So everything was online. And there was a mix of asynchronous and synchronous classes. One of my departments did retain some on-site courses. I was not asked to do instruction in any of those, and I'm not sure that I would have agreed to, simply because the infection rates were very high, and I did not want to be a source of spread. So empathy, to teach with empathy is to inform your teaching through the experiences of another. There's controversy around the term. There's people arguing that we shouldn't be using the term, and typically when they argue that, they don't define it correctly. It's very simple. It's understanding someone else's perspective, which is questionable. Granted, it's very difficult to understand the experiences of another, but then being able to empathize with their situation. And I think, if we work at that, we can all do that. So I was thinking about myself to begin with, and then thinking about, gee, these things could be much worse for a lot of the students in this class. I came in with trauma. I had a very significant loss in my family over a year prior, which was still affecting me. And then just a number of other things. It's life. For some of us, these things come together at once. And for some of us, we're graced where they're spread out. But regardless of the situations that we all found ourselves in when COVID started, COVID didn't care. So, some of these students are going through tremendous crisis before this ever started. And then, many of us I'm very fortunate. I didn't lose anyone to this virus in my family. I've had a couple people fall ill, they recovered. So when I was getting in front of students in the spring, I was thinking there's people in this class that not only are they dealing with being from a marginalized community, not only are they dealing with sexism, not only might they have deaths in their family like I had, not only might they not be able to afford their classes. That's COVID on top of everything else. And COVID, if we were taking it seriously or isolating, it's affected me tremendously. It's affected my ability to basically schedule myself. And so there's other people in the same situation. So when I went into the classroom, what I did first and foremost in the spring in every session was humanize the session. I talked to the students. I reached out to them and said that I understood they were in the same boat, that many were going through trauma, and that first and foremost, what they needed to do was ask for help. And I'm sorry, I'm a very emotional person, so it's hard to talk about these things. And it was very successful. I had increased student feedback in the spring. One course, every student in the class met with me, although the professor did advise that. And all of these things were informed by previous experience. So not only was I looking at what happened in the fall, but I was looking at research. I mentioned that, even the term empathy is under question. Well, I've also got public library experience in my background. So it's great to hear, some of these things that are very applicable, especially in the first presentation, which while talking about another campus library, these are things that are also applicable to the public library sphere. And as a public librarian, this is several years ago, but I mean, those of you that work in public librarianship or that research in public librarianship, a huge part of that job is being able to empathize with the public. When I worked in Vermont, we had people coming in, patrons come in, they order Christmas gifts for a family that are in prison. They're trying to find someone to love in their life, they're alone. I mean, just people with tremendous personal need and stress. And so all those same people in public libraries and in academic libraries got COVID piled on top of everything else. And so my teaching, at a very basic level was just to humanize things, tell them we were all in a shared experience, tell them that they're professors, they're librarians. If they don't want to work with me, we've got lots of other librarians that specialize in so many different fields. And I brag about ISU a lot, very humanistic thinking, student-focused culture. And so I just wanted them to recognize that and know that we care about them and want them to succeed as human beings and as students. And I integrated that human perspective into what followed in all of these sessions. So how can they then take that need to have assistance during trauma and then apply the tools that we have to put them into contact with the people that they need to help them? So I would engage them on a human level and then give them the resources, if that makes sense. One of the things that's very difficult, I think, in these online environments, it just cut me off. I'm not sure how much time we have. I know that we're running late, so I don't want to take up a lot of time, and I'm happy to discuss any of the details in the session. And I don't want to.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine. Take your time.
Okay, great. So then I would move on to integrating the tools. And there's a number of different aspects to how I did that depending on the course. One class we're working on a LibGuide. We launched it in the spring. It was kind of specifically launched, sort of geared around the digital presence. So we're probably going to update it again. Illinois just moved into phase 5. I mean, I don't know what's going on. We were, like a month ago, I don't know. So anyway, I hope this continues because I am really sick of being in my house. So then I would apply the tools. So how did I do that? So instruction sessions wouldn't just be digital. It wouldn't just be asynchronous or synchronous. I started combining them. So students could open, I would send the PowerPoint to the instructor and the student could go through the instruction session that I did in class. But as you can see in this blow up here, not only could they go through the slides, in the ones where it required them to go back through and, interact with the information, I then did in asynchronous content within the slideshow presentation, so that even if they missed the session, and actually the sessions were fairly well attended, I was impressed. I mean, every session that I did, there were student absences, but I was actually very impressed considering just the time period, how I was feeling, and everything on top of it. Sessions were well attended, students were engaged. I got excellent feedback from instructors, and I don't know. My impression is that things went well, but it's so fluid. How do we do assessment on any of this? Fall is different than spring. Spring is different than fall. We're compacted into this little, in many of these sessions, I wasn't given the entire time period, as often happens. Although a couple did, when they saw the value in this, they maybe co-instructors, they used. And I also, in one of the courses, a prior colleague had sort of paved that road for co-instruction, but someone else did that as well. And that also helps integrate you into the course when professors are willing to do that extra level, because the students then view you as part and parcel of that course. You're not just a guest speaker. You're someone that they have to, that they're accountable to. And so I want to be that person that they're accountable to, but I want to be that human face that understands that it's easy to procrastinate. It's easy to wait till the end of the year, but when they procrastinate, they're going to run into the same walls that we're all dealing with. They're going to make their request that with that week left in the semester, and they're going to hit interlibrary loan departments that have people that are suffering through COVID and are short-staffed. They're going to reduced hours. They might have to do curbside pickup, all the other things that are coming with this situation. There's a lot of other data, the articles I read, there's a good one. Abigail Phillips is an author that comes to mind. There's many articles out there on integrating empathy. There's many articles on the term itself. There's a lot of research. I'm just going to stop there. So if you have any questions, we can do it in the sessions. I appreciate today. I wish there were more presenters here today. I really enjoyed the conference in the fall. I thought it was excellent. Anxious to help with this organization any way that I can. I'm very anxious to work with colleagues around the state. Like I said, I'm new, like many of the other people on this call. And I am very anxious for the fall to get here and not be doing this crap anymore. Using it when it's good. It's good for some of these conferences and meetings. And if meetings, it's great. But we need each other. So the end.
That's great. Thank you, Kent. Wonderful.